What's up, people? Hope y'all having a good Thursday morning. My name is TC. This is the Awareness Channel. And what I wanted to talk about today was this. Donald Trump, in his big, beautiful bill, just gave immigration and naturalization 170 million billion, I'm sorry, 170 billion dollars supposedly to fight this illegal immigration battle and this mass deportation program thing that he's got going on. That's a lot of goddamn money. That is a lot of money. That, I just looked it up. I already knew it, but I looked it up to make sure. Is more money than Vladimir Putin uses and his whole military, and he in the middle of a war right now. You dig me? The man that everybody's supposed to be afraid of, and that is going to come and take down America, Vladimir Putin, spends less money on his military than Donald Trump just gave to ICE to pick up illegals off the streets. That's more money than almost I'd be willing to bet anyway. Any African country uses on its military. That's how badly they trying to whitewash this country. The other day, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, out in California, they went up into MacArthur Park. There was a movie about MacArthur Park back in I want to say in the early 2000s. I think I saw that movie. It's a good movie. But anyway, they went up into MacArthur Park in a show of force. They brought a squad of mounted officers. They had dozens of guys on foot marching in squads. They had Humvees. They had helicopters. They had everything you can name out there. And didn't arrest anybody. They didn't take anybody. That was just to show that they could occupy your city if they want to. That was just to show that they could occupy your city if they want to. And they banking on the people being afraid. They banking on the Democratic mayors being afraid. And the people, not necessarily the mayors, but the people being afraid. At some point, though, they're going to go into the wrong city with that bullshit. At some point, they're going to go into like Chicago or New York with that bullshit. And when they do, things are going to get really, really, really out of control. Really out of control. And it's going to look like 1968 up in this motherfucker. But I venture to say this. That is the only thing that the United States government understands. Now, I've been around long enough to remember 1968. And then the 1990s. And then 2020. And all of the shit that was going on in between. The only time that any real change came about is when shit started getting torn apart and torn up. That's the only thing. And people lost their lives. And that's what's going to happen here. ICE went up into Brooklyn the other day, Brooklyn, New York. Went up into Little Haiti. And all them Haitians came out into the streets and put the kibosh on their little operation. they're going to have to go back up into little Haiti and try it again. Only this time, they're going to go in there with reinforcements. They're going to have helicopters. They're going to have riot gear. They're going to have guns. They're going to have deputies that they recruit. They're going to have all of this force up in there. And they're going to be met with force from them people. And it's going to get really, really, really bad and messy. And that's going to be the spark that ignites the flame, and shit going to have to get towed up. I hate to have to say it like that, but that's the only thing that, like I said, that can bring about change in the United States. That's the only thing that this United States government understands. Because when the United States wants something that some other country has, they ask them nice at first. They try to make a deal. And then the country says no. Well, then they go in with the tanks and the bombs and the guns and open up a can of whoop-ass democracy on you. And that's what's going to have to happen here, because all the marching with your signs and your peaceful protests and all that, the United States don't know nothing about peace. The United States has been at war for 90% of its history. 94% of its history, to be exact. I think that's what that note said. You dig me? The United States has been at war since before it was a country, and just about every day after. There's never been a time when the United States knew real peace. And this ain't going to be any different. This ain't going to be any different, only it's going to be internal. And y'all can take it from us black people. The only thing the United States understands and respects is brute force. You know what I mean? That's the only thing the United States understands. They ain't asking people nicely to self-deport. They building detention centers. They got this one down here in Florida, out here in the middle of the Everglades, where it's 95 degrees, 100 degrees in the summertime, and it's mosquitoes and reptiles and snakes and all kinds of shit out there in the swamp. And even if they weren't there, you wouldn't be able to walk out that bitch anyway. They probably gonna build another one. That's what they're gonna do with some of that $170 billion. They're probably gonna build another one. They got Death Valley, California. They got Alcatraz Island, the real Alcatraz. Remember we talked about, Donald Trump talked about Alcatraz a couple months ago? Yeah, they're going to do that. Anything that's bad that they say they're going to do, they fucking do it. Anything that they say is good that they're going to do, they don't do it. They lie. They weasel their way out of it. They want 10,000 new ICE agents. 10,000 of them. They're trying to raise a small army of 10,000 people. You know what I'm saying? They want, you're going to see a facility up in Alaska somewhere. And then, on top of all that, they're going to make your ass work. They bringing back slavery. Legalized slavery. Because the 13th Amendment says, slavery or involuntary servitude shall not exist in the United States except as punishment for a crime. Words to that. I don't know if that's the exact words, but I'm pretty close. So, punishment for a crime, they ain't say what crime. You know what I'm saying? So, and them fields got to be tended to. So they're going to use slave labor for that. So you're going to be looking at a whole different kind of country. You feel me? you're going to be looking at a whole different kind of country. And we ain't even a year into Trump second term yet. We just 7 or 8 months in. 7 months in. And this is the kind of shit we got going. And it's only going to get worse. And the only way to change it, the only way to redirect shit, is to tear shit up. And that's the only thing I can see coming down the pike. I'm sorry to be so gloom and doom, but I gotta keep it real. I gotta keep it a buck with you. We're gonna see what happens. And the only thing I can predict is it's gonna get a lot uglier. And a lot uglier. And still more ugly after that. Before the tide turns and things start to improve around here a little bit. Because you can't just deport 5% of the U.S. population and have it not screw things up and have some. You can't deport 5% of the U.S. population and not have unintended consequences. You can't do that. But they're going to try it anyway. They trying to, it seems like, because they didn't just give $170 billion to ICE. They cut social programs. And they using money from tariffs in order to pay for this shit. Because the tariffs are still in place. They've all been dropped down to about 10%. So you're going to pay 10% more for everything you get, especially from China and everywhere else. They got some big numbers out there, but they don't mean shit. It's all going to be down to about 10%. And that's what they're using to help cover the tax cuts for the rich and this big ass budget for this whole new military he just invented. The military budget itself, the real military budget, all of that. You ever notice though that they always, and I say they, I mean the federal government and the state government and the city government for that matter, always have money when it comes to guns and forcing people to do what you want them to do. They always got money for that. But when it comes to feeding people and helping people and doing good for people, they never have any money for that. It says to me that this country is run completely ass backwards. And at some point, it's going to pay the price for that shit. Anyway, look for them riots and shit to start happening soon. Because that thing they did in L.A., I don't see it happening in New York. I don't see it happening in Chicago without some pushback. Anyway, that's it for now, you guys. Thanks for coming by and listening to me talk my shit. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. And I will catch you on the next one. TC. And I'm out. Peace.